Ladies and gentlemen, we're back once again. This is the Tailgate Committee. It's week 15, otherwise known as Conference Championship Week in college football. We have a jam-packed show. We are talking Conference Championship Week. We got to talk Lane Kiffin again because that whole saga, we hit on it a little bit last week, and it has been, I want to say resolved, but maybe not fully resolved. But there's some stuff coming out that has been pretty interesting. And then we're going to talk the coaching carousel, because since our last episode, when we talked about James Franklin and Eric Morris getting hired, there have been a smattering of new coaching hires all across college football. We are going to look at them and talk about our favorites, our least favorites. Then we're going to get into the conference championship games and our locks of the week. This is the Tailgate Committee. Thanks for joining. Grab a drink, stay a while. Let's talk some ball. Also, find us on YouTube. We are at the Tailgate Committee. If you are watching there, well, actually, that would be the only place you're watching this because that's where we post the show. Follow us. Like this video, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let's get into week 14, our week 14 recap, a wild one it was. Tommy, I'll start with you. What games stuck out to you the most, the biggest storylines? Now the rankings are out. What is the big week 14 takeaway from Tom Scavetta?
The biggest week 14 takeaway is Ohio State finally getting over that hump, beating Michigan for the first time since 2019, a game where they absolutely dominated. They outgained the Wolverines 419 to 163. And guys, they held the ball for a whopping 40 minutes. That is smash mouth Ohio State football on full display. Julian Sayin was awesome with 3 touchdown passes, continuing to stay in the Heisman race. Bo Jackson was great, had over 150 total yards from scrimmage, and Bryce Underwood, they got after him. He did not have a good game, just 63 yards passing and 1 interception, and completed under 50% of his passes. So not a good game for Michigan. They're officially done. And then obviously Bama punching their ticket to the SEC championship, despite getting outgained by over 150 yards. They get by Auburn by 7. And then how about Texas upsetting Texas A&M, a game that I called, by the way. I think I stood alone in that game. With Texas, and the Longhorns forced not 1 but 2 Marcel Reed interceptions, and they outscored the Aggies 24-7 in the second half. Arch Manning, numbers weren't great, but he's passing the eye test a little more now. You're seeing better throws. He's getting it a little bit more despite the sluggish stat line. Their season's done, but their win, guys, caused a lot of movement in this week's CFP rankings. Their win over Texas A&M, a team that beat Notre Dame by 1 point, knocks them down 1 spot to number 10. Because I've had a lot of people asking me, well, why did Bama jump over Notre Dame besides, making the SEC championship game? That's the reason why. These games matter. A lot of stuff matters. Standing shift every single week in this CFP committee. No one is safe.
Nobody's safe. It's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens this weekend. There are some different scenarios that could happen that we could see some teams we really were not expecting get in. For example, Duke, they found their way to the ACC title game with 5 losses, which, Cal took out SMU. And Miami needed Cal to beat SMU, and they needed Virginia Tech to beat Virginia, I believe. And Virginia got past Tech pretty easily. And now we have Duke and Virginia in the ACC title game, just like everybody drew it up at the beginning of the year. Noah, I'm sure there was one game that caught your eye more than others, but hit me with your Week 14 thoughts.
Yeah, guys. Obviously, as you know, I have to first bring up the 17-13 win for Oklahoma over LSU. Big win for them to survive a struggling LSU team, looking very pretty for their college football playoff chances. Another one I want to bring up really quickly was the Egg Bowl, because there was a lot of hype around that one. Kind of when I think about how we expected it, Ole Miss, despite all the drama around their team, ended up dominating that one, winning 38-19. Hope the Ole Miss fans enjoyed that one. It's probably going to be the last moment of enjoyment they get this season, considering what has happened to their team the last two to 3 days. But last and definitely not least, I have to give a shout out to my brothers from another mother from Georgia Tech, for gifting us another win in this absolutely lopsided quote unquote rivalry. It's basically they hate us because they ain't us. You guys know that quote? That's pretty much what it is, because this isn't a rivalry. This is just pure domination. Um, I will give them credit, and I did say this last week. I did say this game would be close. I think, Andy, you probably remember me saying that. A lot of people thought this might be a blowout after, the way they lost to Pittsburgh. I said it would be close, and it was. But I said that the key to the game was to stop the Georgia Tech running attack. And Haynes King was their leading rusher with 39 yards. So I'd say they did a pretty good job of that. And for a game to where it was probably Gunnar Stockton's worst game of the season, Mike Bobo made some questionable decisions in this game, shall we say. Hopefully he got him out of the system. But, in spite of that, defense showed up. They got a gritty rivalry win at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Done about as much winning there as the Falcons have this season. So congrats to them.
Yeah, it's I think when Tom and we posted the clip of me and Tom saying, "Oh, this won't even be close. Georgia's gonna roll." I don't think Tom and I expected 70 yards passing out of Gunnar Stockton, and it was still enough to win. So tip your cap to Georgia for finding ways to win. And these rivalry games need to get back on campus. It shouldn't. We don't need to play it at Mercedes-Benz. I'm sorry, which I think this is the end of that agreement for Georgia Tech. I think the next game will be back on campus, whether that's in Athens or in Atlanta. But yeah, that was a very, very interesting one. Just looking at some other ones here really quick, I thought the Egg Bowl lane being Lane, calling out that one Ole Miss reporter for calling him a hoe. I don't know if you guys saw that. That was very interesting. But this whole time, we'll get in that in a couple minutes with some more Lane talk. But, OSU, Michigan, Tom, you hit on it. Michigan hung around in the first quarter, but after that, it really wasn't close. Oregon over Washington, really solidifying their spot. And then, Oklahoma, LSU, just not impressed with Oklahoma. That offense was anemic. Credit LSU for hanging in that game. And Michael Van Buren, I will say, is not a very good quarterback, boys. And then Miami and Pittsburgh, that's one we picked on the show. Miami looked dominant, did what they were supposed to do. I picked Pitt to win the game, and that was a bad choice. And then the last one, Vandy, 45-24. 21-point win. I was the only one that picked the Doors on the show. Neyland, like I said, proved to be not shit for Diego Pavia. His brother did get arrested after the game. I don't know if you guys saw that.
I did.
And then Cal over SMU. That was a big one. We mentioned that a little bit earlier. Tons of fun games. And then finally, the Snow Bowl, Illinois 20, Northwestern 13. We got about 9 inches of snow in Champaign over the weekend, and that did not stop the Illini and the Wildcats from getting together in Memorial Stadium. They shut down basically 3/4 of the stadium because it was still filled with snow, packed everybody on the west side. I ended up staying home. I didn't go after watching the snow pile up all day. I live about 20 minutes from the stadium, so I was like, I will stay here in the warm. I did have some serious FOMO though, but Gabe Akis, he gets a sack, or maybe 2 sacks actually. 2 sacks. Miles Scott had 2 interceptions, 2 huge interceptions. He goes from being a walk-on, a wide receiver, converted to safety, 3-year starter, and a big part of the Illinois turnaround. And then Luke Altmaier's last home game at Memorial Stadium was a tough one. They asked if he's going to be playing in the bowl. He said he had to talk to his people. So, look out for Luke Altmaier on Sundays, boys. But really, really, really fun and way to end the year. And 8-4 feels a lot better than 7-5. We'll just say that. We will say that. So let's move on. Let's go to our first segment. We have got to talk about Lane Kiffin. He did it. He went to LSU. He has accepted a 7-year, $91 million contract. He'll pay him $13 million annually, making him the second highest paid coach in college football. Apparently, Ole Miss offered him an almost identical contract during their negotiations. Sorry, I don't know why that's on a timer. My fault. But anyway, he decides to go to LSU. He makes this decision after the Egg Bowl. And it kind of went down where I guess they were watching the Iron Bowl in case Alabama lost, that he could coach in the SEC championship game because Ole Miss would have qualified. So he was just kind of waiting everybody, making everybody wait around. Poor Marty Smith was stuck in the Ole Miss football building for 48 hours. I don't know if he ever got out of there, just waiting to report on what was going on. So I guess, LSU, you talk about we've talked about this on the show, guys, right? LSU, Ole Miss right now, LSU, you're talking about a team that just went 7-5. Ole Miss is number 5 in the country, number 6 in the country, in the prime position to make the playoff. Could have made the same money there, but I guess it just speaks to LSU is just a bigger destination job, whether they're going to pour more money into their facilities. They're going to pour more money into NIL, I guess. We'll see. Ole Miss seemingly was ready to strap up and, match the offer. But here he goes. He's already flipped some recruits over to LSU from Ole Miss. There's a kid that lives about 30 minutes from me that was committed to him at Ole Miss, a tight end, J.C. Anderson. We were really trying to get him at Illinois, but the SEC comes calling, and can't blame him for saying no. But he flipped, and several other recruits have. So Kiffin is off. Started off with a bang, to say the least. Also, 7 years, $91 million. And the governor was complaining 2 months ago about the same fucking contract they signed Brian Kelly to. You just did the same thing again. They're paying 3 football coaches right now. They've got Lane on this 7-year, $91 million deal. They still have to pay BK is 54, and they're not done paying Coach O his buyout. That was $17 million. So, I mean, whatever. He moves on. I was talking a little bit earlier. He made his players wait for a meeting. It was supposed to be at 8 in the morning or 9 in the morning. Then it got pushed back to 1. Calls everybody in and lets them know he's leaving. The administration, Keith Carter, the AD, will not be letting him coach the rest of the year, despite him wanting to. And he said that was news to him, whereas Keith Carter said that's not accurate, that he's known that for weeks, that there was a possibility if they made the SEC championship game that Lane would get to coach just due to the timing of it and the lack of time to prepare, but that wasn't guaranteed either. So Lane releases this statement on his social media. After a lot of prayer and time spent with family, I made the difficult decision to accept the head coaching position at LSU. I was hoping to complete a historic 6-season run with this year's team by leading Ole Miss through the playoffs, capitalizing on the team's incredible success and their commitment to finish strong, and investing everything into a playoff run with guardrails in place to protect the program in any areas of concern. My request to do so was denied by Keith Carter, despite the team also asking him to allow me to keep coaching them so they could better maintain their high-level performance. Unfortunately, that means Friday's Egg Bowl was my last game coaching the Rebels. While I'm looking forward to a new start with a unique opportunity at LSU, I will forever cherish the incredible 6 years I spent at Ole Miss and will be rooting hard for the team to complete their mission to bring a championship to Oxford. Now, enter a couple Ole Miss players on Twitter, quoting Suntarine Perkins, I believe he's a linebacker. That was not the message you said in the meeting room. Everybody that was in there can vouch on this. Bryson Sanders, lineman. Despite the team asking me to keep coaching, he quotes, I think everyone that was in that room would disagree. And then another player, Jaden Williams, quoted Sanders, let him know, every single person. The Ole Miss AD, Keith Carter, went on a podcast, Super Talk Mississippi, and was asked if Lane was correct in saying that he did not know until Sunday at 8:30 that he would not be coaching the rest of the season. No, that is not accurate. That's not accurate. The only thing that was a little bit of a wrinkle in it was the fact that if Auburn had beaten Alabama, we were going to play in the SEC championship. That threw a little wrinkle in it, not to say he would have coached in that game, but in the shorter time period, that was maybe the only nuance to it. But absolutely, it was very clear that coaching in the postseason was not going to be an option for Coach Kiffin a few weeks ago. The players are calling him out. The AD's calling him out. This has turned into a lot of he said, she said. They've hired Pete Golding, not as the interim. The defensive coordinator is now the Rebels' head coach. Ole Miss fans are pissed. Ole Miss, they lined up at the airport. They were booing him and anybody that got on the private jets that LSU sent. It just means more in the SEC. This has been a dumpster fire. It's messy, a bad breakup, but we're sitting here. It's Lane Kiffin. We're going to act like this has never happened before. He's done this multiple times. Nobody should be surprised about this. Noah, you're the SEC guy. We'll start with you. Give me your thoughts on this whole clusterfuck.
I mean, it's exactly what you said, man. It's a total mess, and I'm just going to start off by saying this, right? I'm not going to get into who I think is to blame, because, like you said, Andy, I think it's a bunch of he said, she said. I think there's probably what's that quote? There's three sides to every story. One side, the other side, and the truth. I think that it's probably something that is not there, that is not being said. Whether it's the AD's fault, whether it's Lane Kiffin's fault, I don't really think it matters. The main thing that matters is this whole drama has basically totally destroyed this team in the span of about 1 to 2 weeks. And I think that's kind of what everyone, when the news came about that ultimatum a few weeks ago, right? That was the fear of what would happen. And it ended up happening again. It happened back in 2022. It's happening again, not in the way that they're losing games just yet, but the fact that they have lost so much on that coaching staff already. And that's one of my main takeaway on this, guys, is I don't blame Lane Kiffin for this. I don't blame the Ole Miss administration for this. I blame, more than anything, the NCAA calendar, because the way it is set up currently is an absolute joke. The fact that stuff like this can happen when the season is still going on, that a team can lose, I don't even remember them all, offensive coordinator, like basically their entire coaching staff, players, flipping recruitment. We haven't even got, I assume there's going to be multiple weeks into the playoffs. I'm going to assume there's going to be players opting out as well, since they probably think there's going to be no chance of winning. None of this should be allowed to happen until after either the team's last game of the season, so once they're officially eliminated, have no more games to play, or B, after the national championship game. And if it was one of those, I don't care if it was 5 minutes after the last game of the season and Lane Kiffin went to LSU, took the whole coaching staff, whatever, right? The season's over. You got like 8 months. You got 8 months to try and figure it out. The fact that this can happen in the span of 5 days, because it was basically announced on the 29th, right? He was leaving. It's December 3rd. And in that time, barely over 100 hours, the team has totally fallen apart. They're not even considered a threat anymore, guys. This is a team that went, what was it, 11-1? They're number 5 in the country, I believe. They're not going to be even considered a threat in the playoffs because of the fact they've lost basically their entire coaching staff. And that's why I say I don't care who's to blame. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the people that got the total screw job, it's not the administration. It's definitely not Lane Kiffin. It's the Ole Miss fans. And most of all, and I think the sentiment you've seen from those tweets you mentioned, Andy, is the Ole Miss players. Those are the people you should feel sorry for. Those are the people who, in my opinion, got a total screw job. It's unacceptable, in my opinion. They need to change the calendar. This should not be allowed to happen until after the probably the national championship game, just for a consistent standard. I think it's a really horrible look. As for the LSU side of it, like we might get in that a little bit later. I think overall it's a good hire. He was definitely the most quote unquote attractive. There is some risk to him. Like I said, I'm not a major fan of his record in some big games, rivalry games like Alabama and whatnot. And I think if LSU is hiring him with the expectation that he's going to unseat Alabama, I don't know about that. But I do think he will be that guy to get him back on the right track, 10 plus win team or what have you. He's going to be able to recruit really well, especially in a state like that with all the resources. I think at the end of the day, that since we knew Ole Miss would be able to match the contract, it wasn't a money issue. This shows kind of what we were talking about whenever it was 2 weeks ago when you were discussing this the first time. It was about the fact he believes he has a greater chance to, cement his legacy, win more games, maybe win a title at LSU than he does at Ole Miss. He clearly thinks that he is capped at Ole Miss. Whether or not that summation on his part is accurate, we got 7 years to figure that out, right? But as of right now, I think it's a good hire. I feel sorry for the Ole Miss fans and the players. I think they've done nothing wrong. This is just, unfortunately, the way the system works.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up some really great points there. It is about the players, man. Your coach that brought you there, that you've been fighting, playing for all year, in 2 seconds can just walk out the door like that. And that's why I never want to hear anybody bitch about the transfer portal or bitch about guys leaving a school. These coaches are setting the precedent. If they can go do it, more power to the players to be able to do it. Do I think anybody should be straight up just leaving the team in the middle of the season? I mean, look, like you said, they're 11-1. They're about to go to the playoff. Like I don't know. And I get it from Ole Miss's side, being like, why would we let you coach this when you're, cheating on us with LSU? Like, come on, Tom, give me your breakdown, your thoughts on this messy situation in the SEC.
Yeah, I'm just so confused with this Ole Miss LSU thing, because you got other coaches who are taking jobs, like Sumrall, who is staying through the remainder of the season at Tulane. That's a very honorable thing. They know he's going. It might be a distraction, but with Lane, it's terrible. Ole Miss just lost their season. They're likely the 6th seed if things ended the way they were right now. It's an automatic win for the 11th seed, in my opinion. Talent can only get you so far. It's the coaching and the talent. I'm not saying it's not going to be coached properly, but there's going to be a lot of distractions. Guys are not going to be 100% committed and locked in. And I do feel for them. It is a waste of a season almost. You won 11 games. And this is what you get. It just doesn't sit right with me. Yeah, they hired Pete Golding because they want continuity, right? They want somebody who is familiar with the team, with the current players on the team. But little do they know, he is not Lane Kiffin. Besides him being now, what is it, the second highest paid coach in college football, The real reason why he chose LSU is because Lane Kiffin is a douche. There's more intangibles at LSU with NIL, the facilities, recruiting grounds. Ask Brian Kelly. All sounded great. 4 years later, he's gone. And Ole Miss is going to get the better end of this, I think. I know that was one of the questions, like compare the two situations, right? I think Ole Miss is in the better situation right now to succeed long term, despite who the head coach is. Because LSU, it's more, speaking of how bad of a spot LSU is in. If there's one coach right now in college football to get them out of it, it is Lane Kiffin. And I think that's why they hired him. But man, I mean, you really got to sell this Ole Miss fan base on this guy, Pete Golding, who I don't know much about. I heard Noah talking about him before. I don't think he's a big fan. I don't think a lot of people are a big fan of this guy. You're supposed to get excited about this guy heading into the CFP. It was a lot different for Notre Dame at the end of 2021 when we were just in a regular bowl game when Kelly left. We didn't know if we were going to make the CFP at the time. And then Marcus Freeman took over. We lost the bowl game, whatever. We weren't locked in that game. The fact that this is happening to teams that are in the CFP is atrocious. It takes away so much money. You think people are going to watch the Ole Miss game? If it's Ole Miss and Virginia, be honest, guys. Obviously, we're fans. We're going to sit there and we're going to watch the game. I can't even speak because I'm so mad. I'm so frustrated about this whole thing. Of course he knew before Sunday morning what he was doing. His brain knew what he was doing, but his heart didn't. He knew exactly what he was doing. The whole cover-up thing was BS. It just sounds very too similar to Brian Kelly's exit at Notre Dame. Yes, it is more on the scheduling. But Lane Kiffin shouldn't have come out and lied like that either. We knew this was going to be messy regardless of where it went. But yeah, I don't know if Lane Kiffin will get to coach out his whole contract. It's less about him. It's more about LSU. They let Coach O go. They let Brian Kelly go. Their AD situation is a mess. The governor is still involved, as Andy mentioned, because it's a state-run institution. What's the give? What is it? What is it? Because I don't know. Do you guys know? I don't know why this happened now. Is this going to be a trend? Is it going to get fixed? I mean, this is history right here, guys. We all thought James Franklin, that situation was bad. We thought Brian Kelly was bad. Those two situations combined don't touch this situation right now. This is an earth-shattering moment. This is an earth-shattering week in the world of college football. And to be quite honest with you, it might never recover.
Whoa, I'm just going to take a moment, let those words ruminate. Powerful stuff from Tommy Boy. But yeah, that it's just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Just really, really just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And Tommy brought up a good point. Who's to say Lane makes it to 7 years? You know, their last two coaches, the first sign of things going wrong, you're out the door. Were they necessarily wrong to fire those guys? I mean, that's a debate for another day, but you fired Coach O 2 years after going undefeated and winning a national championship. Brian Kelly, you hired him to win a national championship, and he really didn't get close. So I guess that one's more warranted, but it's just how many times are you going to go through this cycle? So interesting. So Lane Kiffin to LSU. Let's talk about some of the other coaching hires that have happened, because there was been a bunch since we last spoke, gentlemen. So I have everyone, I think, besides Morris and Franklin, and we're going to go through the list. You're going to give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, and then when we get through the list, you'll give me your favorite and your least favorite hire. So first, In the SEC, Alex Galesh at Auburn. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
100%.
Ryan Silverfield at Arkansas. In the middle, okay.
Yeah.
John Sumrall, Florida. 2 thumbs up from Noah. And that's, he doesn't, he does not like Florida. That's high praise. Lane Kiffin, LSU. Pete Golding, Ole Miss. 2 thumbs down. Maybe this should just be the show. I'll just do this, ask you guys games, and you just have to say thumbs up or thumbs down. Will Stein at Kentucky, the Oregon offensive coordinator.
He's got no experience. I don't know.
That's another topic. That is a very big trend, it seems like, where these schools are very hesitant to hire coordinators. Like it's a lot of retread coaches, or the head coaches, I should say. This is a very interesting one. Pat Fitzgerald at Michigan State. 2 thumbs down for Tom. Oh my God. And
wow.
Okay, Noah likes it. Noah gave a thumbs up. Bob Chesney at UCLA. From JMU to UCLA. Thumbs up. Tosh Lupoy. So Oregon's losing their OC and their DC. Tosh Lupoy to Cal.
I'll be honest, I didn't know who that was before the show. But due to the development of Gabriel.
Tavita Pritchard at Stanford. From the Washington Commanders, former quarterback for Stanford, coming home. Brian Hartline to USF. This happened today. 2 thumbs up from Noah. Big thumbs up from Tom. Jamarcus Shepard at Oregon State. The Alabama the Alabama receivers coach, I believe. Very fiery. Don't know. He had a very fiery press conference. I like that. Jim Mora to Colorado State. Noah gives a thumbs up. Tom's thinking about it. Tom's iffy on it. It felt weird, right? It didn't feel like the big job that he probably could have got, but
it felt like a 2015 hire. I'm gonna be
honest. Neil Brown is going to replace Eric Morris at North Texas. Big thumbs down from both of the boys. That was immediate from Noah. Colin Klein will replace Kleiman at Kansas State. 2 thumbs up from Noah and an iffy from Tom. That one just dropped. So Colin Klein, one of the best quarterbacks in Kansas State history, was at Texas A&M as their OC, apparently coming home. All right, so we gave our thumbs up and our thumbs down. That is definitely going to have to get clipped for a bunch of those. So, Tom, I want to start with you. Give me your favorite and your least favorite hire from this group.
Oh man, that's thugh because there's 2 or 3.
You can tell. We can throw out multiple. Yeah.
The way I broke this down, Golesh finished 3rd for me. Led the USF team that beat the likes of Florida and Boise State. Great offensive mind, good recruiter. Took a program that had 0 winning seasons in a long time, turned them into a winning program. Now he gets to do the same thing with Auburn, a team that has not had a winning record since 2020. It's tough, though, in the SEC, bottom feeder right now. So that's why he's 3 and not 1 or 2. Sumrall is number 2 for me. For Florida, back-to-back American Conference championships at Tulane, quick riser in the industry. Did good work at Troy, got 12 wins in 22, 11 in 23, 9 wins last year with Tulane, 10 wins this year. And then number 1, this is one of the more unknowns on this list, and I think you guys know where I'm headed with this. Bob Chesney for UCLA. And here's why. This guy is climbing up the ranks fast. He is a quick riser in the industry. He cut his teeth at Assumption College, now University, up in Worcester, Massachusetts, the alma mater of Brian Kelly, by the way. He played linebacker for the Greyhounds back in the good old days. And Assumption was a place where, Massachusetts, right? A lot of the locals went to Boston College. If you weren't good enough to play at Boston College, you went to Assumption. But Assumption produced some NFL talent over the years. Bob Chesney was responsible for Deontay Harris. I believe he changed his last name to something else, but he was a punt returner for the Saints, kick returner. You guys probably have heard of him before. Division II guy getting to the NFL, having a role. He's had some other guys as well that he developed at Holy Cross. C.J. Hansen is on a practice squad in the NFL, offensive lineman. So Holy Cross in the Patriot League did some good work there. He also developed Matt Sluka. If you remember him, he was the guy who got in the portal with UNLV, had a falling out there, just left after like 2 weeks into the season. Not good. And now he's at James Madison. He's got James Madison, Chesney does, playing for the Sun Belt Championship this week. Do we know if he's staying at JMU? I believe so.
I believe he's coaching through the postseason, yes.
So if you want to look at Bob Chesney and the body of work that he's presented, what he's been able to do that I want people to know, because, he was a Division II guy not so long ago. He gives people time of day. And what I mean by that is he talks very similar to a guy like a Marcus Freeman. This guy, I'm not comparing him from a coaching standpoint, but from a personality standpoint. This guy has the tools and the mechanics to get stuff done. Now, it's not going to be easy in an expanded Big Ten now that UCLA is new to, but when you're new to a conference, you need new minds, right? You need somebody that is going to bring a different opinion to things. His offense was very diversified in skill set. Assumption, very good running team back in the day. He's continued that throughout the course of his career, and he has developed good QBs throughout his time as well. I think he has the ability to do that at UCLA. Don't expect progress immediately. Expect it to trickle up time by time. I hope he does well. I mean, Big Ten is going to be really, really tough for a school like UCLA, who's historically got a bad rap over the past 20, 30 years. So it's going to be very tough to get stuff done there. But there's a reason why he took this job, and there's a reason why they hired him. Tough job. You get a good, tough candidate to coach. And now one negative, right, Andy? I'm just going to say Pat Fitzgerald. I gave 2 thumbs down. I know Noah likes it. Just the ugly exit at Northwestern. I know he's under some allegations, right? Like all that stuff. But for me specifically, it's more about Michigan State than Pat Fitzgerald, believe it or not. Michigan State is not good. They are not a good program. They had, I thought, a respectable head coach in Jonathan Smith that they let go way too soon. And we know how Pat Fitzgerald operates. If you've been a Big Ten fan over the years in his days at Northwestern, you know how he operates. I don't see that working with a school like a Michigan State. Maybe it's just me. Michigan State is not a football school anymore. They never really were. I mean, they were good in small bursts, but I don't see. It's because I think UCLA is going to start taking slow steps forward. I don't see it with Michigan State as well. I know he's got 110 wins. He's got a lot of experience, but I just don't like it at this juncture.
Yeah, it's an interesting hire for sure. He left Northwestern with a little bit of a black eye, but I believe they settled that, and he got cleared of everything, so it should be good. And then, Michigan State, they've had a couple scandals in their day as well. They fire, what's his name? Smith? Was it Jonathan Smith, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they fired him, and then like 2 hours later, they're like, all right, Pat Fitzgerald's the head coach. And, oh, by the way, we're investing like $1 billion into our athletics program. I think they're renovating their stadium. But you're right, Tom. Michigan State, they're a basketball school. They had Mark D'Antonio for a long time as leading the football program. He's a really good head coach. And, he went to the college football playoff. If you remember that, shout out to Connor Cook, the quarterback for the Spartans in that one. But it's definitely an interesting hire. Pat Fitzgerald certainly knows how to win in the Big Ten. His last 2 seasons at Northwestern were really bad, though. I think they won like 2 games in each of those seasons. So will be interesting. Noah, I know you said before the show you had a couple favorites. So hit me with it. Favorite, least favorite. What do you think?
All right, I'll start with the easy one. I'll start with the least favorite, and I kind of already alluded to this, but I do not like this Pete Golding hire at all. And I'm not, look, none against Pete Golding. I'm sure he's a really nice guy or whatever. I'm sure he tries his best, but and I understand this is anecdotal, right? It's all a bunch of opinions, but I unfortunately had the displeasure of knowing a fair amount of Alabama fans. And I remember when he was Alabama's DC, and on a weekly basis, I was hearing fire Golding over and over again because of defensive collapses on repeat. It was so bad, guys, that I remember when he got fired, or when he left. I don't think he was fired. I think he just left. When he left Alabama to go to Ole Miss, you would usually think, right, you lose coordinator to one of your biggest rivals in the SEC, you would think that would be a cause of concern. I remember when he left, the Alabama fans were cheering. They were like, "Thank God, Ole Miss hired this terrible coordinator. The problems we had with him are now theirs." And in my opinion, I think the fact that they so immediately made him the permanent head coach, it felt desperate. It felt like they knew with all that they were losing around that they wanted to keep some semblance of regularity or consistency in the program by promoting him. But I mean, come on, is this really the best option you could have had for a head coach leading into the future? I do not think so. Now, as for some of my favorites, I already alluded to this. I don't like to say this because I obviously hate this program's guts, but the more I hear John Summerall talk in his press conferences, I know they're just press conferences. I think he gets it. I think he understands what this Florida program is because my initial thought when I first saw him hired, right, was, oh, Florida's going from one G5, failure of a coach to another G5 coach. Not sure how it's going to work, but the more I thought about it, number one, Tulane is not the same level of a program as UOL was. I think Tulane has looked really solid consistently the past couple of years. I think that he's done a really good job there. But also, Napier was basically a yes man. Let's be honest. He was a nice guy. I think Summerall is a guy that and obviously, it's hard to say, right? But just from the bits I've seen, I think he understands the expectations, what this program is about. I also have to say, by the way, I have a lot of respect for him. I know we just spent like 20 minutes ago shitting on Lane Kiffin. I have a lot of respect for the opposite, how John Summerall has handled this, the fact he's staying with that program, the fact he's been very open and honest about everything that he says. I may be at Florida in 2026, but for 2025, I'm still part of this program. I'm going to give you basically all I have for as long as I'm here. I have a lot of respect for that mindset. I think he will do a good job at Florida. I don't know if it'll be immediate because that program is a total dumpster fire, but I have faith that long term, I think he could do a pretty decent job there. Now, for some other ones, Brian Hartline at USF. When I saw this hire, I was like, oh, wow. First of all, I got to say this. This is a very underrated loss for Ohio State. I know that's, kind of weird to say because he was just, a coordinator, I believe, and Ohio State is currently 12-0, number one in the country. But he had such a big role on their recruiting guys, especially wide receivers. I mean, God, the last friggin' 10 years, as long as I can remember, Ohio State has always had these elite wide receivers. They basically grow on trees. And I think that's a big part down to Brian Hartline, obviously former NFL wide receiver for the Dolphins. I think for recruiting wise, I think USF did a great job. Plus, I also really like it because there is a bit of nostalgia there. I like seeing a former NFL player I used to watch that I liked. Getting a solid head coaching opportunity, and it's in the same state as well. It's not Miami, it's Tampa, but that's still nice to see. And one last one, I said I really like this one. It's another one for nostalgia. Colin Klein to Kansas State. I remember playing him, watching him play at Kansas State. Talk about a dual threat, man. He had like 50 rushing touchdowns in 2 seasons. Guy was an absolute beast. And I think he's done a pretty good job as an OC at the college level. Whether or not he's a good head coach, I mean, obviously that remains to be seen. But just those were 2 hires I saw, guys, when I saw them that had my my nostalgia going a little bit.
Absolutely. I remember watching Brian Hartline when he played at Ohio State, crushing Illinois back in the day. He was a monster. And then Colin Klein, the Heisman finalist, Colin Klein, I believe. Wasn't that the same year as your boy Manti Te'o?
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was.
Yeah. So some really, really, really interesting hires. But before we close this segment out and go to the preview for the conference championship games, guys, let's talk about a school that hasn't hired anybody yet that's making everybody wonder what the hell is going on. Penn State, what are they going to do? They were the first job open, and they look like at this point they're going to be the last one to be filled. They're running out of options. Kalani Sitake was apparently in talks, and Penn State picked up another loss this year to the LDS Church and Crumble Cookies, ladies and gentlemen. The Crumble Cookie CEO is a BYU grad and came in and dropped a bag on Sitake's desk, and he is staying in Provo. Noah, let's start with you. Where does Penn State go from here? What has gone wrong? Why does nobody want this job?
It's kind of a bad answer, I admit, but where they go from here, I don't know, guys. I think they're screwed. I mean, I'm just gonna be perfectly honest. I think they're totally fucked. Like, I don't think there's any any nice way to sugarcoat this or whatever. But look, it all comes down to when they fired James Franklin, right? And I think and I still overall think that it was the correct decision to fire him based on the football on field perspective, right? But the recruiting fallout from this has been disastrous. I mean, what is it? We're up to almost like 20 decommits at this point. They have plummeted in the recruiting rankings. Well, it's not even close to anything good, especially for a program like Penn State. And then you see James Franklin instantly has Virginia Tech, I believe, is in the top 25 in all recruiting. I mean, that is just a massive difference. But look, if they were going to fire James Franklin, right, they needed to have a plan right away. They needed to know who they were going to, because this is a program that could easily hire, just about any coach that they wanted, realistically. I mean, this is a massive program in the Big Ten, one of the top two biggest conferences in all of college football. Yeah, they've had a bad season this year, but I still think this is easily a marquee job. And I said it in the group chat earlier, guys. Look, if Arkansas is filling a head coaching vacancy before you have fucked up something massively. And I think that's what Penn State has done. I don't know who they're going to hire. I would predict it's probably not going to be something that inspires a lot of confidence, which is unfortunate because this program, after the horrible season they've had, I mean, you need something to try and put that energy back in your fan base. Try to get some more recruits in there. But I don't know. It's a basic answer, but the honest question is I don't know, guys. I think they're already screwed, if I'm being honest.
Do they just bring the interim back? And that's not going to help anything. Just punting for another year. I saw that Jeff Brom was a name that was brought up. He's negotiating a new contract with Louisville. Pat Kraft is basically struck out with everyone. And from some of the reports I've seen, this could be due to Jimmy Sexton. Jimmy Sexton is a big time agent for college coaches. One of his clients happens to be James Franklin. Apparently there is a little bit of a vendetta there. They're not happy about the firing, and he is doing his best to kind of screw Penn State and Pat Kraft. Tom, let's get your thoughts. Where does Penn State go from here? What do they do?
Yeah. Well, right now they do nothing. They reevaluate. They wait a little bit. I think there's three guys. Actually four. If you want to try to just poach Manny Diaz from Duke or Jeff Brom from Louisville, not the most exciting names, I know. But at this point, you're picking at scraps. Manny Diaz getting 7-5 Duke or whatever it is, the ACC championship game. If somehow they win that, I call him immediately. Even though Duke is at a very, very tough schedule this year, they've managed to land Darian Mensah. That says something about recruiting right there, right? They paid a lot of money to get him and some other guys. So if you want a guy who could recruit like James Franklin, maybe you target Manny Diaz. Brian Dable of the NFL. He's a free agent right now. The day after he got fired by the Giants, he was seen outside his house wearing a Penn State sweatshirt. I didn't look into it to see if any of his kids went there. I know he's got 6 of them. More wins than he had as head coach of the Giants combined over the past 2 years. And then the outlier. And this is who I think should be the hire at this point. You guys know where I'm going with this. Brian Kelly. He should be the hire for Penn State because he is a Northeast guy. Penn State, not exactly considered the Northeast, but it's close enough. This is a guy who brings a reputation with him. He is a proven winner. He is a guy that can get you back to where you need to be. He has made college football playoffs before. He has made national championship games before, including in the BCS era. He knows what it takes to get to the big game. He's just never won it. Now, people say, oh, yeah, that's kind of like James Franklin a little bit. All right. But what's left, guys? What's left? You're looking at what's left. None of those 4 guys that I just named are going to come without flaws, right? This is what it comes down to. He ain't going after Matt Campbell. He ain't getting Matt Rule. Somebody mentioned Mike Tomlin to me at work the other day. That is insane.
I heard that. I heard somebody say Mike Tomlin. Like,
what is going on here?
Actually, you know who said that? Ben Roethlisberger said that on a podcast that said Mike should go to Penn State and he'd win every. All
right, Big Ben. Yeah, and I can pick cherries from a cherry tree as well. So, yeah, that's not going to happen. But all in all, my final answer, Brian Kelly.
I agree with you. I think at this point, Brian Kelly probably is the best hire. Throw Coach O in the middle of Pennsylvania. See what Orgeron's doing. But yeah, what a way to absolutely fumble the bag and just find a way to just completely destroy your football program in 2 months. All right. That's our coaching carousel. Some interesting stuff this week. Some fun stuff. Let's go. It's conference championship week. Let's do our 6-pack of games. So there are 9 conference championship games. We're going to talk about 6 of them. The 6 of them that have playoff implications. There's 6 conference championship games that we are going to break down. We do want to shout out the 3 other ones and these teams for making it to their respective conference championship games. Conference USA, Kennesaw State, Jacksonville State, both have been mentioned on the show before by the old boy, Noah Diver. He recognizes Conference USA. 6 p.m. on Friday on CBS Sports Network. Friday night, the Mountain West. This one actually will be a pretty fun game. UNLV at Boise State, 7 p.m. Friday on Fox. MAC, and then the MAC, 11 a.m. Saturday on ESPN at Ford Field, Miami of Ohio in Western Michigan. So shout out to those 6 programs for making their conference championship games. Okay, so we have our 3 conference championship games that we're not going to hit on, but we wanted to shout out. So congratulations to those programs. Let's go to the 6 games. We are going to break down the ones I don't want to say that matter because the other 3 definitely matter. Winning a conference championship game is a hell of an accomplishment for whatever team. These are the games that have playoff implications. So we're going to start in the Sun Belt, or the Fun Belt, as I like to call it. Troy is going to number 25, James Madison, 6 p.m. on Friday on ESPN. Tom, we'll start with you. Chesney and the Dukes hosting Troy. They need this one to have any hope of getting in.
Yeah, they definitely do. James Madison's only loss this year was to Louisville. That was their playoff game. Now, there's an outside chance they get in if they blow out Troy and if Duke beats Virginia by, maybe 10, 20 points. That's their only – we're talking like maybe a 10% chance if that even happens. But yeah, they run the football really well. I mean, they average 240 rushing yards per game this year. I think Alonzo Barnett III is a solid quarterback. He's got 33 total touchdowns, 20 passing, 13 rushing. He takes care of the football. They got 2 running backs with over 400 yards. One of them actually has over 1,000 yards in Wayne Knight. 8 touchdowns rushing. And then they have a good pair of receivers too. I don't think Troy has the firepower to keep up, right? I mean, Goose Crowder, that's his name, Goose. He's only started the last couple of games for this Troy team. All due respect for him, they're going to have to rely on Tate Meadows on the ground. And the Trojans don't run the ball well. They only average 3 yards per carry. They're more of a passing offense. So they're going to have to find a way to get pressure on Barnett, stop this JMU run, and they're not going to be able to do it. James Madison wins and covers 23.5.
Big spread for a conference championship game. Noah, do you like the Dukes or the Trojans pull off the unlikely?
Yeah, I'm not going to waste much time on this one, guys. I think this is going to be I got JMU winning this one pretty big. I'm just looking at some of the numbers here, guys, and this Troy offense cannot run the football whatsoever. Actually, 115th overall offensively, 325.6 yards per game. I thought they would be higher than that. Evidently not. Their defense is mediocre, and you're playing a James Madison team. First of all, your defense can't stop a nosebleed when they run the football, and then James Madison averages 240 rushing yards per game. Tom went a little bit into that, but also, guys, JMU has a really good defense. They are 5th overall. They're the 5th best against the rush. They give up only 16 points per game. Now, I get it, right? Sun Belt is not exactly one of the most strongest conferences out there, right? But they've had some impressive wins. I'm looking at their resume here. Destroyed Coastal Carolina, 59-10. They beat Washington State, only gave up 20 points against them. Beat Marshall. They have some, and the only loss was the Louisville one. That was back in week 2 of the season. They've gone on, what is that, a 10-game winning streak since then. By far the best team in the Sun Belt. I don't think this is going to be particularly close. Let me look at the spread real quick. Minus 23.5. I will pick Troy to cover, but not by much. I'm going to pick James Madison to win this game by 20.
20-point win is the prediction. I will take the Dukes as well, especially with them being at home. Fans are going to be fired up. They know they're going to need to put on a show to make this win look as impressive as possible to the College Football Playoff Committee. And I guess they're hoping for Duke to win, I would think, and, kind of go from there. Let's go to our next championship game in the G5. The American title is number 24, North Texas, at number 20, Tulane. They got to go to New Orleans, 7 p.m. Friday on ABC. Tommy, we'll start with you here. You like the mean green or the green wave?
Yeah, a lot of green in this game. Both these head coaches are leaving for Power 4 programs at the conclusion of the season. You got a North Texas team, excellent offense, averages 47 points per game. They are ranked. Good for them. Number 24 in the nation with 11 wins. Drew Mesnemacher has been awesome this season, leads the FBS in passing yards. He completes 71% of his passes, 29 touchdowns to just 4 picks. Not only that, you got a running back that leads the FBS with 23 rushing touchdowns in Caleb Hawkins. UNT has 44 rushing touchdowns as a team. How do you not love that? And to add to it, they have receivers that can catch the football and score touchdowns. Wyatt Young, 3rd in the FBS in receiving yards. A lot of leading stat guys here for this team, 10 scores. And then you turn the page to the Tulane team. Their losses this year are to Ole Miss, who is, top 10 team, and UTSA, and these Roadrunners from a couple seasons ago. You can never forget that little run.
BB.
They went out. They got Jake Retzloff in the transfer portal. He's been a little underwhelming throwing the football, but his legs are still there. He's got as many rushing touchdowns as he does passing, 14 apiece. you got 4 receivers with over 400 yards. So they are able to move the football and score points at a similar rate to North Texas. The one difference for me, guys, you look at a lot of those stats for Mestemacher and Hawkins, they came against much weaker competition. And I think Tulane can play defense a little bit better than North Texas. I think that's what it comes down to. I believe North Texas is favored in this game, right? What is it?
Correct.
Two and a half point spread. The winner of this game likely makes the college football. I mean, that's just insane. This is really tough. I like Summerall just a tad more than Eric Morris. They're both great coaches, but I'm going to go with Tulane here.
Tulane is the pick from Tommy Boy. Noah, what do you think about this big one in the American?
Yeah, this is a big one. Like Tom said, this is basically a playoff game between these two, which, I mean, hey, if you told me before the season that North Texas and Tulane would both be in NCFP contention, I would not have believed it. But, here we are. I think this is going to be a wild game. I think this is going to be a shootout, guys. Both of these defenses are what I would call mediocre. In fact, they're basically even. Tulane defense is 64th yardage wise, and North Texas is 65th, but they have different strengths and weaknesses. North Texas is much better against the pass, but they cannot stop the run whatsoever. On the other side, Tulane is the exact opposite. They're better against the rush, but they cannot stop the pass whatsoever. And I think when I analyze those differences, right, I think there's a much bigger opportunity for North Texas to utilize that weakness than the opposite, because like Tom said, this is a team that loves passing the football. Tulane struggles against the pass, and when you got a guy like Drew Messemaker, like Tom said, they're leading the nation in the passing attack. Let me look it up. They're averaging 510 yards per game, which is first in the FBS, and passing wise 324.8 per game, which is second. Oh, by the way, they average 46.8 points per game, which is also first in the FBS. Now, I do agree this is a much better team than what North Texas would usually play, but their pass defense does not really inspire me with confidence. So for that reason, I'm going to go against Tommy Boy here. I'm going to go with Drew Mestemaker and the Mean Green. They're going to look mean in this one, and they're going to get a win 48-45.
Points. A shootout at Yeoman Stadium is the projection from Noah. This is really tough. Both good arguments. I just trust this North Texas offense a lot more than I do Tulane. Retzloff has been up and down this year throughout the end of the season. He has put together some pretty good performances. But I like North Texas. I think they go on the road, and I think they get the win. Let's go to the Big 12, number 11, BYU, and number 4, Texas Tech, 11 a.m. on Saturday. ABC is where you can find this one, ladies and gentlemen. Noah, we'll go to you first. Cougs, your Cougars, or the Red Raiders?
Again, guys, this is another one I'm going to keep pretty simple. We only saw this matchup a few weeks ago. Right now, I know that was at Texas Tech, not AT&T Stadium, but it wasn't even close. Texas went out there, beat them 29-7. It was just a total blowout, pretty much. I don't think there's going to be. I do think this game will be closer, but I don't think it'll be close enough to where it ever be in doubt. Texas Tech is legit, guys. I think BYU's had a really good season, but me personally, when it comes to a passing attack, I have much more faith in Baron Morton than I do Bear Bachmeier. Bachmeier is a solid player. He's a great rusher of the football. But when you have an air raid offense like you have with Texas Tech, I think Morton has done a great job with that. I think it's going to come down to shutting down LJ Martin, right? I think he has been, one of the catalysts for that BYU offense, but when you look at the numbers, right, Texas Tech, is the best rush defense in all of college football. So I think that's something that could really work their advantage. And like I said, Bachmeier is a mobile quarterback, so that's another thing that could work their advantage. I also have more faith generally in the Texas Tech offense than I do opposite. So I think that they have advantages on both sides of the football. And while it is a neutral side, I do believe it'll be closer than that, game at Texas Tech a few weeks back. But I don't think it'll be that much in doubt. Spread is 12.5 in favor of Texas Tech. I think that's about fair. I will go Texas Tech winning by 10.
Texas Tech by 10. Tom, I think I know where you're going with this, but let us know.
Yeah, I mean, I told you guys the very first show of the season how I felt about Texas Tech, and they have answered my calling. They convincingly won this regular season matchup, as Noah mentioned. BYU, they have a lot more to lose in this game. They are fighting for their CFP lives. If they win, they're in. If they lose, they're not in. That's what it comes down to. It's as simple as that. A loss leaves them out. They got blown out the first time. That's part of the reason why they're on the outside looking in right now. They got blown out in that first game. They couldn't run the football. They only had 67 rushing yards. They turned the ball over 3 times compared to Texas Tech, who turned it over no times. Texas Tech's a really good linebacker in Jacob Rodriguez. I want to start with their defense because they have brought defense back to the Big 12. Defense exists again. They are third in FBS in points allowed per game. Opponents only score 11 points against them per game. This Red Raiders defense has not surrendered more than 9 points in each of their last 3 games. Imagine holding your opponent to 2 single-digit points 3 weeks in a row. I mean, you're looking at teams like the 85 Bears or, the 1990 Giants. We're looking at teams like that, if that's what you're going to. But anyway, I just think this Texas Tech team is more experienced, right? Baron Morton, 5th year, 6th year senior, whatever he is at this point. He's old. 20 touchdowns to 4 picks. Cam Dickey is good, but this is a similar 1-2 punch to a team like a Notre Dame or even a Georgia. I mean, you got Cam Dickey, 13 scores, 1,000 yards. And then you got Jacoby Williams, who is going to be an awesome starting back when his time comes. I really like him. And the pass game. I know they've had some drop issues this year with Coy Eakin and Terrence Carter, but you got Caleb Douglas this guy's good. I mean, his numbers aren't like, oh my God, bona fide number 1, but he is their number 1 at the end of the day. He'll draw some double team attention. You worry about him, good luck covering Reggie Virgil. I mean, that's what it comes down to for BYU. Are you able to keep up with them? They can't. They have Texas Tech is the nation's leader in sacks with David Bailey, another transfer guy, 12.5. You basically have 3 potential first-team All-Americans on your defense in David Bailey, Jacob Rodriguez, who has 7 forced fumbles, 4 picks, over 100 tackles, insane stats for a linebacker, and then Bryce Pollock, who has 5 picks. I know BYU, they just extended Satake, a possible distraction, probably not, but it is worth considering because his name was thrown around this week. It could have taken him away from this game for prepping for this game for a few minutes. I don't think it'll affect him that much. Both teams take care of the football, as I said, but the experience factor goes to the Red Raiders, and BYU, unfortunately, will be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, it really is unfortunate for BYU. You win 11-1 in the regular season in a Power 4 conference, and there's questions about if you deserve to be in or not. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, we saw what happened 29-7 the last time these guys got together, and it probably could have been worse. Texas Tech made a couple of mistakes in that game. 12.5. I think Texas Tech wins the game. I think BYU is going to claw and fight and keep this within 1 score until late in the 4th quarter, and Texas Tech will pull away. Either that or Texas Tech just comes out and punches them in the mouth right away. And we'll see. Jacob Rodriguez, 101 tackles. And by the way, they put him in and he can run in for touchdowns as well. They've been trying to boost that Heisman resume, giving him some rushing touchdowns. All right, let's go to our next game. And I am looking forward to getting the old boys' thoughts on this one. The SEC title game, number 3, Georgia taking on number 9 Alabama, 3 p.m. Saturday on ABC, right back in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Noah, the floor is yours, my friend.
First of all, I just want to give a great big shout out to Texas A&M. Really appreciate the goose egg you guys laid for us last week, because now we have to play our bogey team. And look, guys, everyone has them. That one team you just cannot beat whatsoever. Unfortunately, this is ours, and I think if it was just based on what I've seen this season, I do think Georgia has been more consistent. I think they played pretty well lately. I mean, it's kind of the Georgia Tech game. They did not play their best game, but before that, they had so that convincing Texas win. They had that big comeback against Ole Miss. They've had some really good results the second half of the season, whereas Alabama has kind of slipped up lately. They had that loss to Oklahoma a few weeks back. So, and they had a really big scare, by the way, against Auburn. I actually was surprised at how close that one was in the Iron Bowl. But unfortunately, guys, again, this is the bogey team. This is a team, all logic, I think, goes out the window. Unfortunately, what I would expect is this game will be very close. It'll probably be decided by 3 to 4 points. And I'm going to see something at this point in this game, whether it's Mike Bobo related, whether it's a stupid turnover, whether it's a big drop pass, to where I'm going to be like, that was the play that lost them the game, because that's what happens every time. It's always a close game, and Georgia always, without fail, makes that massive mistake, and Alabama doesn't. And that's the reason they always lose these close games like that. Another thing I would point to, the turnover margins. Georgia's actually a -1. Alabama is a +8, so that would be something to keep an eye on. I think these teams are evenly balanced. Again, I just think it's going to come down to the fact, unfortunately, this is the team that Georgia always struggles against. They always, make the mistakes. Mike Bobo, please, for the love of God, lock in. Don't do like you did back in 2023, where you did that the reverse flea, whatever the hell that play call was, where we fumbled on like our 15-yard line when we had momentum. But, it's very likely that will happen again. Unfortunately, I have to pick Alabama, guys. I've seen this story too many times before. I do think it would be close. And I hope I'm wrong. I will gladly be wrong, but I'm going to pick Alabama to win by 4 points.
A Bama 4-point victory is the prediction from Noah Dibler. Maybe he's hitting him with the old Tom Scavetta reverse jinx. I could be a smart play. Tom, Georgia, Bama, SEC title. Talk to me.
It's true. Alabama has been Georgia's kryptonite. Regular season matchup. Georgia had one key turnover in that game. Also, they were only 2 for 8 on third down. They struggled to move the chains. Stockton was only able to throw for 130 yards, but that really wasn't the story of the football game. It was just Alabama flat out played better late in the game. But since then, UGA has gone on an 8-game winning streak. They have in my opinion, a top 10 quarterback in the country in Gunnar Stockton. Say what you want about him and his size and his arm strength. I don't care. He's a winner. He's a baller. 20 touchdowns, only 5 picks. He completes 70% of his passes, over 400 rushing yards and 8 scores on the ground. That is your modern quarterback. He is really, really good. And then the run game, I like Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens. Zachariah Branch is a nice option as well. And then, you got good linebackers on this team. We saw what C.J. Allen could do in big moments. Chris Cole, Raylan Wilson, just to name a few. And when I look at this Alabama team, they don't run the football very well. Not a single running back has reached 500 yards yet on the ground this season. It all lies on Ty Simpson and this Alabama defense. But what Simpson has been able to do this year is remarkable. He's got Gurby Bernard, Ryan Williams, Isaiah Horton. Yes. But Ty Simpson makes clutch throws. He is able to get his football team wins. And that is why he has been a Heisman contender at times this season. I still think he's in the race. I don't think he's the favorite. I don't think he'll win it, but he might deserve an invite. We'll see. And then defensively, Jan Pierre leads them in sacks, forced fumbles too. LT Overton's another guy that Georgia needs to shore up. And then Bray Hubbard is a juggernaut for causing turnovers, 4 picks, 3 forced fumbles. So, you want to make sure you play mistake-free football against this team. Now, the SEC champion has flip-flopped between between Alabama and Georgia every year since 2021. Last year, Georgia won. This year on paper, it is Alabama's turn. But Nick Saban's not there anymore. Kalen DeBoer is not beating Kirby Smart twice in one season. Old boy, snap out of it. Georgia wins outright. Go Dogs.
A vote of confidence for the Dogs from Tommy Boy. And I'm right there with you, Tom. I'm going to take Georgia as well. Noah, I think you guys can do it. I really do think you guys can do it. You had your gross, ugly game last week. Bama had theirs too against Auburn, but you're going to bounce back. And I think you get the win and potentially a number. Well, Georgia could potentially move up to the number 2 seed if they win. I don't know if they would drop the loser of Ohio State, Indiana. But let's talk about Ohio State, Indiana. Number 1 versus number 2. Excuse me. Number 1 versus number 2, 7 p.m. Saturday on Fox, the Big Ten championship game, Mendoza versus Sayin. Tom, we'll start with you. Buckeyes or Hoosiers?
Yeah, look, this is going to be a great game. Ohio State had their biggest test this year in week 1, and since then it's been very smooth sailing, but also the competition hasn't exactly been elite. Julian Sayin, in my opinion, should still be the Heisman favorite at this point in time, even though Jeremiah Love has made a late season surge into that conversation. 30 touchdowns in your first year starting. I don't care who you are. That is an impressive feat to accomplish, and he is still completing 79% of his passes, which is remarkable. These aren't short dink and dunk passes. He's throwing the football down the field, up the seam, play action pass, you name it. Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, tight end Max Clare. I mean, Tate's going to be a first-round pick in this year's draft. He's got Smith coming back for another year. I mean, this is a real good football team. They might go back-to-back in the national championship, and defensively, they don't lose a step. This defense allows under 8 points per game this season, only 203 yards per game. They have Cade Curry, who has 9 sacks, Arvell Reese, who has emerged into a nice sideline-to-sideline scraper, Kenyatta Jackson on the defensive line that is going to give Indiana some problems. But the one matchup I'm watching in this game is Indiana center Pat Coogan, who I have mentioned a lot on the show over the past year, going up against Ohio State defensive tackle Caden McDonald. This is where games are won. The trenches, boys. That is why I love Big Ten football. These two teams go at it, smash mouth style. You got a good run stuffer against one of the most elite run blockers in the NCAA. And then you turn the page, Fernando Mendoza, he's taken a step forward this year. The Hoosiers, they run the ball 230 yards a game. You got Roman Hemby, Kalen Black, Kobe Martin, Elijah Surratt in the pass game, Omar Cooper, each of those guys with 11 touchdown receptions, and they got real good weapons too. Similar to Ohio State, they're not a team that just runs the football. They can throw. E.J. Williams, Charlie Becker, tight end Riley, Nowakowski, these guys can play. They're all good players, and defensively, they're right up there with Ohio State. They only give up 11 points per game. That's second in the FBS. Only behind Ohio State. You have 2 of the best run offenses in the nation and the top 2 defenses in the nation. You got to love it. Elijah Hart is going to be a real tough guy to block. And they have guys that can cause turnovers like Lewis Moore and Amari Farrell. What it's going to come down to is who wants it more, in my opinion, who takes better care of the football, who makes plays late in this game. It might come down to who has the ball last, honestly. I don't foresee this being a blowout. 2 to 3 years ago, maybe. Last year, maybe. But not this year. You saw how Indiana played against Oregon on the road. Kurt Cignetti has put this team on the map. However, the Hoosiers have not won the Big Ten since 1967, where they won a share of the title. And they have not beaten Ohio State outright since 1988. All good things must come to an end, fellas. And Ohio State, unfortunately, will continue to go undefeated. Muted.
Switched us up there, buddy. You little trickster. How the turntables turn. Tom is taking Ohio State. Noah, do the Hoosiers have a chance to win this game?
They absolutely have a chance to win this game, guys. This is, like it says in the 10, the two best teams so far this season. The only 12-0 teams left, I believe. 1 versus 2. I mean, this is absolutely an insane matchup, and it's kind of what we've been expecting for about a month and a half at this point since Indiana beat Oregon. This is, two elite defenses. Tom already went a fair bit into this, but you have Ohio State, who's number 1, and then you have Indiana, who they're 4th overall, but like you said, they're 2nd against the rush, and they're 2nd in points allowed. Both these teams are elite on third down. I mean, get this. Ohio State, 27.3% on third down defensively. Indiana, 27.7%. Both of these teams are disciplined as well. You're not going to, probably see a lot of penalties in this game. 2 elite offenses as well. You have Fernando Mendoza and Julian Sayin, 2 of the top quarterbacks in the country. Yeah, it's going to come down to a few things for me. Number 1, turnovers. Are there going to be any big turnovers in this game? I think that is something that could really decide a game like this. Indiana is actually, guys, number 1 in the FBS, plus 17 on the turnover margin. If Indiana wants to win this football game, I think they need to do something to Julian Sayin that he has really not done a lot this season, which is turn the ball over. He only has 5 interceptions on 327 pass attempts. And Tom already said he's completed 79.9% of his passes or something like that. I mean, he's just been clinical, deadly accurate all season. That is going to be tough to do. So I think it's going to have to come down to some pass rush to try and force a turnover there. These are also 2 teams that are all about ball control. Both of these teams average almost 34 minutes time of possession per game. Running the football is going to be big in this game. And that is actually, I think, one advantage I would give to Indiana over Ohio State. Indiana is way better at running the football than Ohio State. They're number 9 in the country on that mark. Ohio State is number 53. However, like Thomas said, and we've said several times throughout this show, right? This Ohio State defense is the best in the country. It'll be the toughest matchup for this Indiana offense they've had all season by far. However, I would also say the opposite is true. That's what happens, guys, when you have the 2 top teams in the country playing each other. It's not going to be easy to pick a winner in this one, in my opinion. However, still have to pick one. And in my opinion, I hate to say this, I hope I'm wrong. I think Ohio State probably repeats. Like Tom said, I think this has been the best team in the country all season long. I think something I could see, since he did mention this, their toughest test this season was basically their first game, right? Since then, they've kind of been on smooth sailing pretty much. Whereas Indiana, they've had to fight and claw for some wins. They had the survival against Penn State. They had a really impressive win against Oregon, which is the only reason Oregon isn't in this championship game as well. They won 11-1. That was their only L on the season. So both these teams deserve to be here. But I think Ohio State just has that extra 5 to 10%, what have you. Spread is -4. I think that's about right. I will pick Ohio State to win by a field goal.
Ohio State, their defense has not let up more than 16 points all year. Guess who scored 16 points on them? Illini. Big time. I just don't know if Indiana has the skill players to keep up with Ohio State. They're so good on the outside. Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith are so tough to cover. Julian Sayin is just like a machine back there as far as, his completion percentage and seeming to make all the right plays, even as a freshman. I hope I'm wrong too, but I think Ohio State does win this game. So that's the sweep. You're welcome, Indiana fans. Let's get our last game and let's get the hell out of here, boys. The ACC Duke versus number 17 Virginia, 7 p.m. Saturday on ABC. Tom, do the 7-5 Dukies have any chance against the Hoos this weekend?
Nope. Virginia wins outright. Look, That they had 2 bad losses to NC State and Wake Forest. I don't care. They just won 34-17 at Duke a couple of weeks ago. What makes you think things are going to change just a couple weeks later? Duke lost the game to UConn last year. It is terrible that they are in the ACC championship game. They do not deserve to be there. 5-way tie for second place. That is terrible, terrible stuff. I will say Mensa has played well statistically wise this year. I like Cooper Barcade, but Virginia wins, and they cover that 3.5-point spread, and congrats to them on advancing to the college football playoff.
An early congratulations from Tommy Boy. Noah, do you see it playing out in a similar way there?
Well, damn. I mean, I don't know how to follow that up, but yeah, I kind of agree. I think that basically the only chance Duke would have this game is if Darian Mensah and that passing attack goes off, because I think that's kind of what has been basically carrying this team the whole season, because their defense is not good. They cannot stop. They cannot stop. They're 131st against the pass guys. They're 112th defensively overall. They give up 414 yards per game. They give up almost 40% on third downs. I just talked about the third downs for Ohio State and Indiana. One of those teams in that mix is actually Virginia. They're second in the country, guys. 27.3% conversion rate for opposing offenses. For this Virginia defense. The only chance I think Duke would have, in addition to Mensa, they need to try and force turnovers. They've been good at that all season. They're +8 in the turnover margin, but they're also undisciplined. They have over 60 penalty yards per game as well. I'm going to say it a little nicer than Tom did. I respectfully think Virginia will win this game probably quite easily.
Respect. He very respectfully picks the Cavaliers. I'm going to take Virginia as well. I would actually love to see Duke win this game to see the chaos that it might bring to the bracket, but I do think Virginia is going to have enough to get this done. All right, fellas, that is our preview of conference championship week. Let's lock it up and get the hell out of here. I'll go first. I'm 3-11. I picked I picked Texas A&M last week.
Bro, give it up, man. Give it up.
UNLV is going to beat Boise State on the road. Book it. That's my pick. Good. Tom,
Boise State.
Yeah.
You know what? I was actually thinking of being petty and taking the Boise State spread after what Andy just said, but I'm going to be a little bit nicer and hope that Andy gets a win there. Actually, I don't, because if Boise State wins their conference, then Notre Dame gets an edge on that. They can say they beat a Mountain West conference champion.
You're welcome. I just guaranteed that for you.
Thank you. Anyway, Texas Tech by 6 points at least over BYU.
Okay. Noah?
Well, I got to be honest. My pick was UNLV over Boise State, but now that Andy has picked it, guys, I cannot possibly go with that as my pick because it basically means you're guaranteed to lose. Yeah. So, you know what? You know what? The Red Hawks against the Western Michigan Broncos, man, the MAC championship game, which Andy so disrespectfully forgot to even put on the script. Way to go to him.
I put it in our group chat, but I didn't put it in the script for whatever reason.
You should have just picked Boise State, man.
You should have picked Boise. That would have been funny.
Yeah. You know what? Boise State. Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen. He's going to be looking like Sullen Mullen after that embarrassing, 24-10 loss to the Broncos on that blue field. He's going to be seeing blue, man. He's going to feel blue.
Oh, man, throw out the records when you go into Albertson Stadium in Boise, Idaho on the blue turf.
Yeah.
But, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another week of the Tailgate Committee. It's week 15, conference championship week. I want to remind you one more time, follow us on socials if you haven't already. We are on Facebook and Instagram at the Tailgate Committee. We are on Twitter at the Tailgate.com. Please like this video, subscribe on YouTube, comment, tell a friend. We are at the Tailgate Committee on YouTube. That's Noah Dibler. That's Tom Scavetta. My name's Andy Hopper. We'll see you next week to talk about the conference championships and bowl season.